I'm Sarah Borgson-Keto, and in conjunction with Nareit's REITwise 2022 Law, Accounting and Finance Conference, I'm speaking today with Christina Thomas, partner in Mayer Brown's Washington, D.C. and New York office and a member of the capital markets practice. Christina, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you for inviting me.
What is the current state of play regarding the SEC's proposed ESG regulatory changes, and what was behind the impetus for more robust disclosures?
Okay, so let's start a little bit further back with the changes that were made a couple of years ago to Regulation SK, specifically the introduction of human capital management disclosures. So Regulation SK Item 101 in the business section was revised to require, to the extent material, disclosure about a company's human capital management. So this was in recognition of the fact that, since the original disclosure requirements were enacted, our public company landscape has changed. And so for a lot of companies now, human capital is much more material than property, plants, and equipment. So recognizing that that's not true for every company that reports in the U.S., but for some, the SEC published rules that would require human capital management disclosure to the extent material. Now, in recent months and in the last year, the SEC has been talking about proposing new rules, not only on human capital disclosures, but also diversity and climate change. And actually, just earlier today, the SEC voted to propose rules that would require new climate change disclosure requirements of public companies, both in their registration statements and in their periodic reports.
How prepared are REITs to address human capital issues, and what level of detail might they have to disclose?
So for REITs, it's a pretty interesting question, because for a lot of them, they would not be considered the companies that human capital management is something material to their business, right? We see a lot of REITs who don't even have employees, and one of the sort of threshold questions when you're talking about your human capital is, how many employees do you have, right? So we see disclosure from REITs kind of explaining how their structure works, and information of that sort, but it's a bit different than, say, a fully remote tech company that doesn't even have an office space, but they have just people, and they rely on those people to produce what they produce and to earn money for the company and to grow the company. So it's a little bit of a different scenario, and I think it's we've seen in the last couple of years since these disclosure requirements came out, varied disclosure based on not only company to company, but industry to industry.
Is there an upside for companies that now have to assemble ESG data that they might otherwise not have had to collect?
So it probably differs depending on who you ask, right? But for some companies, in trying to look at the upside for having a new disclosure requirement, they might think, well, this puts my disclosure in line with my peers, or this provides information that my investors have been asking for, and so I'm being responsive to investors in that way. But it is, anytime you increase a company's regulatory burden, it's, that's something to think about too, is do the costs outweigh the benefits? And that's always something that when the SEC engages in the rulemaking process, they have to consider that as well. So, I think there are benefits to be seen by companies who now have to provide more uniform disclosure, but keeping in mind that it can also be an increased cost for those companies as well.
Christina, thanks for your time today.
Of course, thank you.
And for more news and information from REITwise, be sure to visit Nareit's website, REIT.com.